The morning at 6 a.m. with Cher. Elton John, though,
That brings it up another level.
It does.
By the way, I'm on the show today. I know based on the clip, a lot of people probably thought I'm not on the show because there's like a lot of Pete, a lot of Abby.
No, it's because there was so much Ed.
There was like, you know, I know you guys had more energy than I did last hour, I guess. So I'm going to like jack it up right now.
You're going to bring up your game a little bit?
I'm not mad or anything. I'm just saying. I'm just going to mention it a couple times.
Well, welcome to the show, Ed. We love having you here.
Thanks.
Love it.
I appreciate
Good
it.
morning to all of you. Thanks for tuning in.
We are still standing after a long week. Started with the State of the Union, but it feels like almost forever ago.
Yeah,
and
we were
as
just
always
talking
happens,
off camera.
news hits on the weekend here.
This was like the biggest speech of his presidency. We were all talking about it, and it was, what, 5 days ago, and we've moved on. There's been 4 or 5 major breaking stories since then, and now another one.
One this morning, Donald Trump already up tweeting something that is causing us all to think a lot more about what's going on. He says, terrible, just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. Is it illegal for the sitting president to be wiretapping a race for president prior to an election turned down by court earlier? It's a new low.
And he also tweeted, I'd bet a good lawyer could make a great case out of the fact that President Obama was tapping my phones in October just prior to the election. So we're following this like you are in real time. These tweets just came out in the last 10 or 15 minutes.
What is he referring to specifically? Has he been briefed on something specific the public doesn't know about yet? Or there have been reports suggesting that there are intercepts of some of the conversations of General Flynn and others on the whole Russia deal. And so is he suggesting that the intercepts with information of the conversation, did that come from a wiretap approved by the Obama administration to, though specifically, he says, tap into the phones at Trump Tower?
At Trump Tower,
which obviously
a
sitting president going after essentially the incoming president would jack up this whole story the current president's been talking about how the Obama administration was setting traps, these leaks that we see now. This would jack it up that there was a wiretap before the election. Remarkable.
This could totally change this entire conversation. I mean, as he said in that tweet, McCarthyism. I mean, this really jacks it up.
Well, it's a witch hunt. If you do believe that the previous administration is doing anything they can to discredit you, to include declassifying intelligence before the election so that if Trump wins, the information's out there to build a case that there's some sort of collusion with Russia, why would it not then lead you to believe maybe they did take some steps, some extraordinary steps while still in office to monitor whether those conversations were going on? And as we've seen before, the president has been pretty astute about getting ahead of the news cycle with more information because he knows it. He sees it. He's got intelligence briefings. He looks at it. We don't. He tweets it. We speculate about it. And then more information comes out to affirm it.
And even before the president raised this to a whole new level this morning, you had Rush Limbaugh yesterday talking about this very thing, basically saying the Obama administration on the way out the door was trying to spring a trap. Watch.
A silent coup that was put in place by Obama and the Democrats during the transition and before, after the election. What is happening here is a full-fledged effort here to deny Trump the actual control of governing, of the government, by leaving so many Obama career people appointed, by going so slowly on confirming Trump's cabinet appointees. I'm telling you, if you want to find out who is really working together to sabotage the United States, you find the link between Barack Obama, Vladimir Putin, and the Russian government. That's the story.
You know, the conservative talkers have been all over this. Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin calling it a secret coup. You put it together, what's being done against this president. It's discredited. Now we're finding out it was formalized even beforehand.
Pete, you are on President Trump.
I am following his Twitter feed right now. Just 2 minutes ago.
What's
we
the
can't
latest?
barely keep up right now. Just 2 minutes ago, the president tweeted, how low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon Watergate. Bad or sick guy. I mean, that is a pretty apropos comparison, if that is what happened.
Just to be clear, like we are getting this news directly from the president, from his Twitter account. When he got these reports and how this all came about, we don't have any of those details or how significant all of this is. But I can't imagine he would tweet something like this, Ed, unless he had some real concrete evidence to back that up.
At least suggesting it. And I think it's interesting that he's turning that Watergate analogy, did you notice, around on the Democrats? Because remember, about 2 weeks ago, it was this administration is like, this is worse than Watergate, the DNC said, in terms of the Russia thing. And I had a viewer tweet me last hour saying, what were you talking about when you said there's no there there? I'm saying, is there evidence? Because that's the point. And Pete has been making this, and Abby has as well, which is, look, you can have meetings with the Russian ambassador. That does not prove there was criminal action, doesn't prove there was a problem, an ethical issue. The key is the content. Is there any evidence there? Is there anything behind it? Just talking to somebody, obviously Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have now found out, they met with the Russian ambassador too, so meetings don't mean that much. It's what actually happened. And so far, there's no evidence to back up the idea that there is a problem.
That's what I was going to ask you, because as the American people are trying to wrap their head around all this, figuring out what is going on with this whole Russia and the leaks and the 4 investigations that are playing out. We are trying to understand it ourselves, and I think that is the problem, is what are Democrats ultimately trying to find in the end? What is their long-term goal?
Tear down Donald Trump. But what I'll guarantee you from these tweets is that there's probably more facts behind these, based on what the president knows, than facts behind the articles we see in the failing New York Times and the Washington Post. I'm not kidding. You look at the headlines, you might as well think that there was collusion between the Trump administration and
Even though the
Russia.
big New York Times story a couple weeks ago, in the middle, 20th paragraph or something said, there's no evidence that this was a problem. They don't put that in the lead
it's not
or
in
the
lead.
headline.
It's collusion, no evidence.
But is that what they're trying to find, though, Ed? Because you've been covering
some sort of evidence that suggests that there were not just phone calls, but that there were promises made, inclusion that if Donald Trump wins and you help us get elected, I'm not saying this happened, but that would be the allegation, then we will in turn, once elected, remove sanctions, and do other things to help
even
Russia.
President Obama has said, remember right after the election, this is legitimate, there's no evidence of this. Well, other Obama administration officials have recently come out and said, hey, there's no there. They're Michael McFaul, this is the Obama administration's Russian ambassador. This is what he had to say about President Trump and Russia.
With respect to coordination about the campaign, that's the number one question, okay? That's the Watergate moment. That's when everything gets really serious. And up to this point, there is not, especially on the record here as we are today, I'm not willing to speculate about that because the data is just not there. The evidence is just not there.
That is fascinating because I covered Mike McFaul, know him very well in the Obama White House. He is an Obama partisan, as you say. You accurately portrayed that. But also, putting aside partisanship, Mike McFaul is widely regarded. He's out in California now as an expert on Russia and somebody who, as you say, worked in the Obama administration. And he is saying, listen closely, there's no evidence. He is, to be clear, leaving the door open. We may find evidence of a problem. But as an Obama partisan and an expert on Russia, he is saying very clearly, people calm down. There may be some smoke here, but there's no suggestion yet that there's fire. So that is a very important thing for an Obama person to say that.
But then this week, just something comes out about General Michael Flynn, not Michael Flynn, Jeff Sessions, and all of a sudden there's this rush for him to resign. But you hear from McCall there, he's saying, "Calm down, everybody."
An Obama person says, "Wait, there's no evidence yet."
And there's really important couching, even in what Sessions said, because what Sessions said before Congress was not illegal and it wasn't untruthful. They asked in the context of the campaign. Whether there was conversations between Sessions as a surrogate, was what was implied, and Russia. He said no. Because he wasn't talking about the campaign when they came to his office. Now, obviously, people understand who he's backing.
He was wearing 2 hats, though. I think we can agree. And that is the question.
Fair enough.
He met as a senator on the Armed Services Committee. Fair. However, he was a prominent surrogate for Donald Trump in the campaign. And that's part of the question. But you're right. The bar for whether this was perjury and he should resign, give me a break.
You know what I think is frustrating for a lot of people about this whole thing is it makes it so we're not talking about jobs. We're not talking about things that everyday Americans are passionate about. The reason why many of them voted for President Trump to get working on, those are not the headlines right now. We are still talking about Russia.
The Vice President and the Speaker were in Wisconsin, in the home district of Speaker Ryan yesterday. That's why he spoke to Bret Baier exclusively, talking about jobs in the economy.
And
that was drowned out by all of this.
Yeah, we'll see how this changes the landscape. While you read some headlines, I'm going to keep scanning President Trump's
Keep us posted, okay?
I will.
We do this weather.
Asked in the context of the campaign, whether there was conversations between Sessions as a surrogate, was what was implied, and Russia. He said no. Because he wasn't talking about the campaign when they came to his office. Now, obviously, people understand who he's backing.
He was wearing 2 hats, though. I think we can agree. And that is the question.
Fair enough.
He met as a senator on the Armed Services Committee. Fair. However, he was a prominent surrogate for Donald Trump in the campaign. And that's part of the question. But you're right. The bar for whether this was perjury and he should resign, give me a break.
You know what I think is frustrating for a lot of people about this whole thing is it makes it so we're not talking about jobs. We're not talking about things that everyday Americans are passionate about. The reason why many of them voted for President Trump to get working on, those are not the headlines right now. We are still talking about Russia, this
the Vice President and the Speaker were in Wisconsin, in the home district of Speaker Ryan yesterday. That's why he spoke to Bret Baier exclusively, talking about jobs in the economy.
And
that was drowned out by all of this.
Yeah, we'll see how this changes the landscape. While you read some headlines, I'm going to keep scanning President Trump's
Keep
Twitter
us posted,
feed.
okay?
I will.
We do have some other